The stars burned cold and distant as the Valkyrie research vessel moved through the darkness of space. The ship was massive, built from black metal that seemed to swallow light itself. Inside, Physician Prime Kelth stood before a viewing screen, his three eyes fixed on the blue and green planet floating below. "Fascinating," he whispered, his voice carrying the soft, clicking sounds of his language. The Valkyrie had ruled 12 star systems for over 1,000 years. They were masters of genetics, able to reshape life itself. Their scientists had studied thousands of species across the galaxy, always searching for the secrets that would make them stronger, smarter, better. They saw other life forms as tools, nothing more. And now they had found Earth. Kelph's assistant, a younger Valkyrie named Ren, approached with a data tablet. "The atmospheric analysis is complete, Physician Prime. The planet is rich with diverse life. The dominant species calls themselves humans. And their technology level? Primitive. They have barely left their own planet. No energy shields. No faster-than-light travel. They still use combustion engines." Kelph's thin lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Perfect. Begin the collection process." Over the next 3 months, Valkyrie collection teams visited Earth in silence. They came in the night to places where humans lived alone, far from cities and crowds. A research station in Antarctica vanished without a trace. A fishing boat off the coast of Japan simply disappeared. Hikers in the Canadian wilderness were never seen again. Small villages in remote parts of Africa, South America, and Asia woke to find neighbors missing. On Earth, people noticed. Conspiracy theories spread across the internet. Governments launched quiet investigations. But without proof, without bodies, the world continued as it always had. People disappeared every day, after all. This was just more of the same. But at W.S. in a single quotes to deep beneath the surface of Valkyrie Prime, the Valkyrie homeworld, Sarah Chun opened her eyes to blinding white light. Her head pounded. Her mouth tasted like copper. She tried to move, but found her arms and legs strapped to a cold metal table. "Subject is awake," a voice said in a language she didn't understand. But somehow, the words appeared in her mind, translated by something she couldn't see. A face loomed over her. It was tall and thin, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. 3 eyes blinked at her, one above the other two. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything from Earth. Sarah tried to scream, but her throat was too dry. "Subject displays typical fear response," the creature said, making notes on a glowing tablet. "Neural activity is remarkably complex for such a primitive species. Proceeding with initial genetic sampling." The pain that followed made Sarah wish for death. But death didn't come. It never did. Not for weeks that turned into months. The Valkyrie facility held 347 humans in the beginning. They came from all over Earth, speaking different languages, from different cultures. The pain was universal, and in the sterile white rooms beneath Valkyrie Prime, they all learned the same lessons. The Valkyrie tested everything. They injected humans with strange chemicals that made their bodies burn from the inside. They exposed them to radiation levels that should have killed them instantly. They cut open their skin to watch how fast it healed. They shocked their brains with electricity to map their neural patterns. 63 humans died in the first month, but the others survived. And that fascinated Kelth more than anything else. Marcus Webb had been hiking alone in Colorado when the bright light took him. He was a veteran, trained to survive, trained to fight. But nothing had prepared him for this. He lay on his containment cell floor, watching his latest wounds slowly close. 3 days ago, they had broken both his legs to study bone regeneration. The bones had set wrong, and the Valkyrie had broken them again. Now, they were healing faster than before. Through the transparent wall of his cell, Marcus could see other humans. A young woman who cried constantly. An old man who had stopped eating. A boy who couldn't have been more than 15, rocking back and forth in the corner of his cell. They were all changing. Cal stood in his laboratory, examining tissue samples under a quantum microscope. What he saw made his heart beat faster. Human DNA wasn't like other species. Most creatures in the galaxy had genetic code that was stable, predictable. But human genes were different. They contained sequences that seemed to activate under stress, rewriting themselves, adapting to threats. It's as if they were designed to survive, he told the Valkyrie Council during his monthly report. Every challenge we present triggers new adaptations. Subject 247 has developed resistance to radiation poisoning. Subject 89 can now survive in temperatures that would freeze most carbon-based life. Subject 134's immune system has learned to fight off every pathogen we've introduced. The council members listened from their seats high above him. They were old, powerful, and hungry for results. Can we replicate these abilities? Council Leader Vex asked. Not yet. But with more subjects, more time, I believe we can isolate the mechanisms. Imagine honored Council Valkyrie soldiers with human adaptability. We could engineer a warrior class that evolves in response to any threat. How many more subjects do you need? Kelf calculated quickly. 1,000 should suffice. Approved. Expand the collection operations immediately. In her cell, Sarah Chung pressed her hand against the wall. On the other side, Marcus pressed his hand to match hers. They couldn't speak. The Valkyrie had placed dampening fields that prevented sound from traveling between cells. But they could see each other. Sarah had been a scientist before this nightmare. A marine biologist studying deep-sea life. She understood adaptation, evolution, survival in extreme environments. And she was beginning to understand something the Valkyrie didn't realize yet. They were making humanity stronger. Every torture session, every experiment, every moment of pain was teaching the humans to endure more than any species should. The Valkyrie thought they were studying passive subjects. They didn't see that they were creating something dangerous. Sarah caught Marcus's eye through the wall. She tapped her finger against the transparent barrier. Once, twice, 3 times. A pattern. A code. Marcus tapped back. A different pattern. In cells all around the facility, other humans noticed. They started tapping too. Messages passed from cell to cell, a language born from desperation. The Valkyrie monitors recorded the tapping but dismissed it as stress behavior. They didn't understand that the humans were talking. They didn't understand that the humans were planning. They didn't understand that every day they spent breaking humanity down, they were actually building something that would break them. Kelf filed his report and returned to his work, pleased with the progress. The new subjects would arrive within months. The real research could begin. In the darkness of her cell, Sarah Chun smiled for the first time in 147 days. She had figured out the weakness in the Valkyrie technology. Now she just needed time to share it with the others. The Valkyrie had made their first mistake when they took humans from Earth. Their second mistake would be not killing them all immediately. Some mistakes, Sarah knew, you only make once. 4 months had passed since Sarah Chun first opened her eyes in the Valkyrie facility. 4 months of endless pain and impossible survival. But something was changing, and even the Valkyrie scientists were beginning to notice. Subject 134. Sarah's designation sat strapped to an examination table while Kelth ran his tests. He injected her with a neurotoxin that should have paralyzed her nervous system. Sarah's body convulsed for 30 seconds, then went still. Kelth waited, monitoring her vital signs. Her heart kept beating. Her brain activity remained stable. After 2 minutes, her eyes opened. Impossible, Kelth muttered. The dose should have shut down all neural function for at least 6 hours. Sarah said nothing. She had learned not to speak to them. Instead, she watched everything. She memorized the sequence Kelth used to activate the restraints. She noted how long it took for the door locks to cycle. She counted the seconds between guard patrols. She was learning to survive. They all were out in the exercise yard, a cruel joke, really. Just a larger white room. Humans were allowed to interact for 30 minutes each day. The Valkyrie watched from observation booths high above, recording everything. They thought they were studying social behavior under stress. They didn't realize they were allowing their prisoners to organize. Marcus Webb approached Sarah as casually as possible, pretending to stretch his legs. The enhancements the Valkyrie had forced on him were obvious now. His muscles had grown denser, stronger. His reflexes were 3 times faster than before. They had been testing combat applications, forcing him to fight automated drones while they recorded his tactical responses. "Chun," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. The observation booth was too far away for normal hearing, but they had to be careful. "We're up to 47. 47 humans who were part of the resistance. 47 who understood the tapping code. 47 who were ready to fight." "Not enough," Sarah whispered back, picking up a medicine ball as if exercising. "We need the new arrivals. The ones who came in last week. They're still in quarantine. Different wing. Then we find a way to reach them." A Valkyrie guard approached, and both humans moved apart, continuing their exercises. The guard watched them for a moment with his 3 unblinking eyes, then moved on. Sarah returned to her cell when exercise time ended. As the door sealed behind her, she sat on the edge of her sleeping platform and closed her eyes. This was when she did her real work. During one of the experiments, the Valkyrie had implanted a neural interface in her brain, trying to map human consciousness. They had removed it after a week, deeming the test complete. But Sarah had felt something during that time, a connection to the facility's network. A brief moment where she could sense the electromagnetic patterns that ran through every wall, every door, every system. She had a theory. A dangerous, probably insane theory. Human brainwaves operated on specific frequencies. The Valkyrie technology used electromagnetic fields that were remarkably close to those frequencies. During the neural interface experiment, her brain had accidentally synchronized with the facility network, causing feedback that the Valkyrie had dismissed as a malfunction. But what if it wasn't a malfunction? What if it was a vulnerability? That night, as the facility entered sleep cycle and the lights dimmed, Sarah began to tap. The message spread through the walls, passing from cell to cell. By morning, every human in the facility knew. Kelth was planning something big. The Valkyrie scientist stood before the council once again, his posture showing barely contained excitement. Behind him, holographic displays showed data streams and genetic charts. "The results exceed all projections," Kelth reported. "The humans are evolving in real time. Subject 247 now has dermal tissue that can withstand direct plasma fire. Subject 89's body temperature can shift between 30 and 60 degrees Celsius at will. Subject 312's immune system has become so aggressive that it attacks and destroys cancer cells before they can divide even once. And the military applications?" Bex asked from his high seat. "Promising. Subject 402, the one with military training, has developed tactical thinking that borders on precognitive. He anticipates our drone attack patterns before they execute. When we force subjects to work together in combat scenarios, they developed coordinated strategies within minutes, despite speaking different languages. Show us." Kelth activated a video feed. The council watched as Marcus and 5 other humans faced off against a squad of combat drones in the training arena. The humans had no weapons, no armor. The drones were set to stun, But their attacks were fast and lethal looking. The humans won in 43 seconds. They moved like water, flowing around each other, communicating through glances and gestures. Marcus led them with nothing but hand signals, and they responded instantly. When one human fell, 2 others covered his position without hesitation. "Remarkable," one council member said. "But can we control them?" Kelf hesitated. This was the question he had been dreading. "That requires further research. The neural override implants we've tested have all failed. The human brain adapts too quickly, rooting around the control mechanisms. Then they're too dangerous," another council member declared. "Terminate the experiments. Destroy the subjects." "No!" Kelf's outburst shocked the chamber. He composed himself quickly. "Forgive me, honored council, but we're on the verge of a breakthrough. I propose one final experiment. We will link multiple human minds simultaneously through neural interfaces. This will allow us to map their collective consciousness and find the key to controlling their adaptive responses." Vex considered this. "How many subjects?" 50, the strongest survivors. "And if this fails?" "Then we terminate them all. But I believe it will succeed." The council voted. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. In her cell, Sarah received the news through the tapping network. In 3 days, 50 humans would be taken for a mass experiment. She knew this might be their only chance. The Volcari were getting nervous. If this experiment failed, they would all be killed. But if it succeeded in the way Sarah hoped, they might be able to do more than just escape. She spent the next 3 days using the exercise periods to find the right people. She needed humans with strong wills. People who could hold a thought pattern despite pain or fear. The neural synchronization would only work if they could all focus on the same goal at the same moment. Marcus was obvious. There was also Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a physicist who had been studying quantum entanglement before her abduction. James Okonkwo, a Nigerian engineer who had figured out how to jury-rig Valkyrie technology. Maria Santos, a Brazilian pilot who had learned to navigate by the alien star patterns visible through observation windows. And 45 others, each chosen for their mental strength. On the morning of the experiment, guards came to escort them to the main laboratory. Sarah saw the massive chamber for the first time. 50 neural interface chairs arranged in a circle, each one surrounded by monitoring equipment. Valkyrie scientists moved between the stations, preparing their instruments. Kel stood in the center, supervising everything. His 3 eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Strap them in," he ordered. The humans didn't resist. They sat in their assigned chairs and allowed the restraints to close around their wrists and ankles. Neural interface crowns lowered onto their heads, cold metal touching their skulls. Sarah caught Marcus's eye across the circle. He nodded once. Kelf began the activation sequence, initiating neural link in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded into sensation. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding, touching the minds of 49 other humans. She felt Marcus's determination, Yuki's brilliant analytical mind, James's practical engineering knowledge. She felt their pain, their fear, their rage at what had been done to them. And beneath it all, she felt the hum of the Valkyrie technology, the electromagnetic fields that controlled everything in the facility. Now, she thought, and 49 other minds heard her. Together. Focus on the frequency. Push. The Volcari had wanted to study human consciousness. They were about to learn that something should not be awakened. 50 human minds, linked and synchronized, pushed against the facility's network with every ounce of will they possessed. Somewhere deep in the building's core, an alarm began to sound, and the lights started to flicker. The first thing to fail was the lighting. The overhead panels flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the laboratory in dim red light. Kelf stepped back from his console, confusion crossing his face. What's happening? He demanded. His assistant checked the monitors, but the screens were filling with error messages. The neural link is creating feedback, Physician Prime. The electromagnetic interference is... The restraints on Sarah's chair clicked open. Then Marcus's. Then all 50 chairs simultaneously released their prisoners. For a moment, nobody moved. Valkyrie scientists stared at freed humans. Humans stared back, their minds still partially linked, sharing thoughts and intentions without words. Then Marcus lunged forward and grabbed the nearest guard's weapon. Chaos erupted. The Valkyrie guards were taller, stronger, and armed. But the humans had spent months learning to survive impossible odds. More importantly, they were angry. 4 months of torture had burned away their fear and left only rage. Marcus moved like lightning, his enhanced reflexes making him faster than any Valkyrie could track. He took down 2 guards in seconds, disarming them and passing their weapons to other humans. James Okonkwo grabbed a fallen scanner device and smashed it against a control panel, shorting out the door locks throughout the section. The central console. Sarah shouted, "We need access to the network." Yuki was already running toward Kelth's main control station. The Physician Prime tried to block her path, but Maria Santos tackled him from the side. They crashed to the floor together, and Maria grabbed the data tablet from his hands. "Got it," she yelled, tossing the tablet to Yuki. The physicist caught it and began frantically swiping through the Valkyrie interface. The neural link had taught her mind how to read their language, and her fingers flew across the screen. What she found made her blood run cold. Sarah. There are 17 more facilities. Yuki's voice cracked with horror. Thousands of humans. They're all over the planet and the moon colonies. And there's something else, Project Genesis. They're planning to create a hybrid species using our DNA, a slave race. Sarah fought her way to Yuki's side, taking down a Valkyrie technician who tried to stop her. She looked at the data tablet and felt her stomach turn. The Valkyrie weren't just experimenting on humans. They were planning to remake them into obedient workers, stripping away free will and independence. "Can you access the other facility systems?" Sarah asked. "Maybe. The network is damaged, but..." Yuki's fingers danced across the screen. "There. I've got a connection to the planetary grid." "But Sarah, if we send another electromagnetic pulse through the network, it could kill any human currently connected to a neural interface." "How many?" Yuki checked the data. "At least 300. They're in active experiments right now." Sarah looked around the laboratory. Humans and Valkyrie were still fighting, but her people were winning. They had secured the room and barricaded the doors. Through the transparent walls, she could see Valkyrie security forces gathering in the corridors outside. Marcus appeared at her shoulder, breathing hard. He had a cut across his forehead and a Valkyrie plasma rifle in his hands. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before they breach the doors. What's the plan?" Sarah looked at the data tablet, then at the 50 humans who had risked everything in the neural synchronization. Then she looked at the numbers again. 300 humans who might die if they sent the pulse. 3,000 who would definitely die if they did nothing. "We send the pulse," she said. "Full power. Shut down every Valkyrie system on the planet." "That's a death sentence for 300 people," Yuki protested. "It's a chance for 3,000. Sarah's voice was hard. "This is war. We didn't start it, but we're going to finish it." Those 300 knew the risks when they got strapped into those machines, just like we did. "We send the pulse." Marcus nodded. "I agree." One by one, the other humans voiced their support. Even Yuki, tears streaming down her face, agreed. "All right," Sarah said. "Yuki, Set up the transmission. James, can you amplify it? The engineer examined the laboratory's equipment. Yeah. These neural interface stations are already designed to generate powerful electromagnetic fields. If I link them all together and route them through the planetary communication array. He started pulling cables and connecting systems. Give me 3 minutes. You've got 2, Marcus said, watching the doors. They're bringing up heavy equipment. Sarah turned to the other humans. Everyone not working on the pulse. Grab weapons and get ready. When these doors come down, we hold them off as long as we can. The humans formed a defensive line. Most had never held a weapon before in their lives. But they had all learned to fight in the Valkyrie arenas, and desperation made them dangerous. James worked frantically, rewiring the neural interface stations while Yuki programmed the pulse sequence. Sarah helped where she could, her hands shaking despite her calm voice. Done. James shouted. We're ready to transmit. Sending the pulse in 10 seconds, Yuki announced. 9, 8. The doors exploded inward. Valkyrie soldiers poured through the breach, their weapons firing. 2 humans fell immediately. Marcus returned fire, his shots precise and controlled. 4, 3. More Valkyrie entered. The room filled with the smell of ozone and burning flesh. A human named David Chun took a plasma bolt to the chest and went down screaming. 1. Sarah grabbed Yuki's hand. Do it. Yuki activated the transmission. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every piece of Valkyrie technology in the laboratory began to smoke. Monitors exploded. Weapons died in the soldiers' hands. The emergency lighting failed, plunging them all into darkness. And across Volcara Prime. The pulse spread like wildfire through the planetary network. In the capital city above the facility, 1 billion lights went out simultaneously. Floating platforms lost their anti-gravity fields and plummeted toward the ground. Transportation systems failed. Communication networks collapsed. The entire infrastructure of Valkyrie civilization, built on integrated technology and networked systems, crashed in an instant. In 17 research facilities across the planet and its moons, containment fields failed. Security doors unlocked. Thousands of tortured, starving humans suddenly found themselves free. And in the neural interface laboratories where 300 humans were currently undergoing experiments, the machines overloaded and died. Some of those humans survived the sudden disconnect. Many did not. In the darkness of the laboratory, Sarah felt the weight of those deaths settle on her shoulders. She would carry that weight for the rest of her life. But she didn't regret the choice. Sometimes survival required terrible decisions. We need to move, Marcus said in the blackness. Find the others. Get to the surface. Wait, Yuki said. She was still holding the data tablet, which was running on its own battery power. I'm picking up signals from the other facilities. They're using emergency communication protocols. The humans are free, Sarah. They're all free. Then we need to coordinate, Sarah said, before the Valkyrie can regroup. Everyone, grab what you can carry. Weapons, supplies, anything useful. We're getting out of here, and we're not leaving anyone behind. In the darkness, the freed humans began to move. They stripped the dead Valkyrie of their equipment, gathered medical supplies, and prepared for the long fight ahead. Sarah took one last look at the laboratory where she had suffered so much. 4 months ago, she had been a scientist studying ocean life in peace. Now she was a soldier leading a prison break on an alien world. The Valkyrie had wanted to study human evolution. They were about to witness it firsthand. Let's go, she said, and led her people toward the surface. Behind them, in the ruins of his greatest experiment, Physician Prime Kelth lay unconscious among the wreckage. When he woke, he would find his world transformed. The humans had been specimens, test subjects, Powerless victims. Not anymore. Now they were something the Valkyrie had never encountered before, an enemy that adapted, that survived, that refused to stay broken. And the darkness that had fallen across Valkyra Prime was just the beginning. The surface of Valkyra Prime was chaos. Sarah's group emerged from emergency access, tunnels into a city that no longer recognized itself. The capital had been a marvel of technology, floating platforms connected by bridges of pure energy, buildings that shifted shape according to need, vehicles that moved through invisible magnetic pathways in the air. Now it was a graveyard. Platforms had fallen from the sky, crushing buildings below. The energy bridges had vanished, leaving gaps hundreds of meters wide. Vehicles littered the streets where they had dropped, and fires burned across the city. The Valkyrie population stumbled through the darkness, their society shattered in an instant. Marcus scanned the skyline with stolen Valkyrie optics. I count at least 20 crash sites just in this sector. The damage is extensive. Good, Maria said coldly. She had lost 3 fingers to Valkyrie experiments and walked with a limp from bones that had been broken and healed poorly. Her hatred was a cold, hard thing. Sarah understood the feeling, but she also understood strategy. We need to focus. The Valkyrie will recover eventually. We have maybe 48 hours before their military regroups. In that time, we need to find the other humans and figure out a way off this planet. The data tablet shows the nearest facility is 20 kilometers north, Yuki said, still clutching the Valkyrie device. It held about 800 humans before the pulse. Then that's where we go. They moved through the city in a group of 50, armed and dangerous. Valkyrie civilians fled at the sight of them. Some tried to attack, but humans who had survived months of torture weren't easily stopped. The group fought their way through several confrontations, leaving injured Valkyrie in their wake. Sarah felt no guilt. These people had allowed the experiments to happen. They had lived in luxury while humans suffered below their feet. Whatever happened to them now was justice, not cruelty. After 6 hours of hard travel through the ruined city, they reached the northern facility. The building was partially collapsed, its power systems destroyed by the pulse. But humans were already pouring out of the emergency exits, blinking in the dim light of Valkyra Prime's orange sun. "Chun!" a voice called out. A man with a wild beard and haunted eyes ran toward them. "Sarah Chun? From the neural link?" "That's me." "Who are you?" "Dr. Raymond Foster, neuroscientist. I was in Lab 7 when the pulse hit." "Is it true? Did you really shut down the whole planet?" "Just the network. But yeah, it's true. Thank God. Thank God." Raymond laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "We thought we'd die down there. But the doors opened and we just walked out." "Are there others?" 16 more facilities across the planet and the moons," Sarah said. "We need to reach them, organize everyone. The Valkyrie will counterattack once they regroup." Over the next 24 hours, the human resistance used stolen Valkyrie communication devices to contact the other facilities. The story was the same everywhere. Doors had opened, security had failed, and humans had escaped into the chaos. Some facilities had fought bloody battles with their Valkyrie guards. Others had simply walked out unopposed. By the time 30 hours had passed, Sarah found herself leading nearly 4,000 freed humans. They had gathered at a military depot on Valkyra Prime's largest moon, a facility that James and other engineers had determined was running on independent backup power. The depot was massive, designed to service the Valkyrie's planetary defense fleet. Row after row of ships sat in the hangars, most of them dead from the electromagnetic pulse. But some older models with analog systems were still functional. "We've got 42 ships that can fly," James reported to Sarah in what had become their makeshift command center. "They're not pretty, and they're definitely not fast, but they'll get us off this rock. Can we fit 4,000 people? Tight, but yes. These are troop transports. They're built for cargo capacity. Sarah looked at the data tablet she had taken from Kelf's laboratory. She had been studying it obsessively, learning everything she could about Velkari technology, their star charts, their empire's structured dot, and their records of Earth. "We have a problem," she said to her core team, Marcus, Yuki, James, Maria, and Raymond. "The Velkari have Earth's exact coordinates in their central database. When they recover, they'll send ships, and Earth doesn't have the technology to fight them off. Then we delete the records," Marcus said, "before we leave." It's not that simple. The database is distributed across multiple locations. We'd need to physically destroy the server nodes, and some of them are in the capital city, heavily defended even now. Yuki looked up from the technical readouts she'd been studying. "There's another option. We don't just run. We cripple them. Make sure they can't follow us or threaten Earth for generations." "What do you mean?" "The Velkari technology all runs on the same principles. Integrated networks, centralized control, electromagnetic power distribution. We've already proven we can crash their systems. What if we did it permanently?" "We'd need to take out key infrastructure," James said, catching on. "Power generation, manufacturing, shipyards, and the genetic research facilities," Maria added. "Destroy their data. Make sure they can't use what they learned from us." Sarah considered this. It was dangerous, maybe suicidal. But the alternative was leaving the Velkari Empire intact, with knowledge of Earth and a burning desire for revenge. "We'd be condemning their civilization to a dark age," Raymond said quietly. "Millions of Velkari would suffer. Die, even. They tortured thousands of us," Maria snapped. "They don't all deserve it," Sarah interrupted. "But that's not the point. The point is protecting Earth and making sure this never happens again. We're not doing this for revenge. We're doing it for survival." She looked around the room at her team. "Here's what I propose. We split into strike teams. Each team hits a specific target. Power generation, manufacturing, military installations, research facilities, and the central database. We destroy or corrupt everything we can. Then we rendezvous back here and leave. That's at least 5 major operations across an entire planet," Marcus said, "in hostile territory, with limited weapons and no backup. I know. Anyone who doesn't want to volunteer can stay with the ships. No shame in that. You've all been through enough." Nobody moved. Every single person in the room stayed put. "All right then," Sarah said. "We've got about 12 hours before the Velkari military gets organized enough to counterattack. Let's make those hours count." The strike teams launched within 2 hours. Sarah led the team targeting the central database, located in what remained of the capital city's administrative district. Marcus took the military installations. Yuki and James split up to hit power generation and manufacturing. Maria volunteered. For the research facilities, she wanted to personally destroy every piece of data the Velkari had collected on human biology. Sarah's team of 20 humans approached the administrative district under cover of the orange twilight. The building still stood, protected by backup power and armed Velkari guards who had reorganized in the chaos. 12 guards visible, Marcus had said before they split up. "Maybe more inside. Sarah, please don't die doing this." "I'll try my best." Now, crouched behind the rubble of a fallen platform, Sarah watched the guards patrol the entrance. She had a Velkari plasma rifle, 2 grenades she barely knew how to use, and a team of people who were trained as scientists and teachers, not soldiers. But they had all become something else in the past 4 months. Something harder. Something the Velkari should have been more careful about creating. "On my signal," she whispered. "Remember, we get in, we destroy the servers, we get out. No unnecessary risks. In and out," her team confirmed. Sarah took a deep breath, raised her rifle, and gave the signal. The attack was swift and brutal. Sarah's team moved like they'd been training together for years instead of days. The neural link had taught them to anticipate each other, to move as one unit. They took down the exterior guards and breached the building before the Valkyrie inside could mount a proper defense. The server room was deep underground, protected by multiple security doors. But with the network down, the doors were just metal barriers, and James had taught them all how to bypass Valkyrie locks. Inside, rows of crystal and data storage units glowed with soft blue light, still powered by the building's independent systems. Each crystal contained centuries of Valkyrie knowledge. "Plant the charges," Sarah ordered. "Everything burns." Her team worked quickly, placing explosive devices around the room. They had 5 minutes to get clear before detonation. At 3 minutes, alarms began to sound. Valkyrie reinforcements were approaching. "Go, everyone out." The team ran for the exit, fighting their way through corridors filled with smoke and weapons fire. 2 humans fell. Sarah stopped to drag one of them to cover, but she was already dead. They made it outside with 30 seconds to spare. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, a column of fire erupting from the administrative building. Centuries of Valkyrie knowledge vaporized in an instant, including every reference to Earth's location in space. Across the planet, the other strike teams reported similar successes. Marcus had destroyed 3 military installations. Yuki had collapsed the main power generation facility. James had sabotaged the orbital shipyard's manufacturing equipment. And Maria had personally set fire to every genetic research facility she could find. When the teams returned to the Moon Depot 18 hours later, they brought news of a Valkyrie empire in ruins. The damage would take generations to repair. Sarah stood on the landing platform, watching Volcara Prime turn slowly in the black sky. The planet looked darker than before, its cities silent and cold. Raymond approached her quietly. "The last transport is loaded. We're ready to leave whenever you give the order." "How many did we lose?" 47 during the strikes. Another 63 who died in the facilities after the pulse. 110 lives, added to the hundreds who had died during the experiments. All because the Valkyrie had seen humans as nothing more than lab animals. "Make sure their names are recorded," Sarah said. "All of them. We're not forgetting anyone. Already done." Below them, 4,000 humans prepared to leave the nightmare behind. They were going into the unknown, into a galaxy that might hold more dangers than the one they'd just escaped. But they were going together, and they were going free. Sarah took one last look at Volcara Prime, then turned toward the ships. "Take us home," she said. But home was light years away, and the path back was lost. For now, survival was enough. For now. The main hangar of the Moon Depot was packed with humanity. 4,000 people, scientists, soldiers, teachers, farmers, children who had been snatched from their homes, elderly who had thought they'd live out their lives in peace. All of them scarred. All of them changed. All of them waiting to hear what came next. Sarah Chun stood on a raised platform where Valkyrie officers had once given orders. Her reflection in a polished metal panel showed her how much she had changed. 4 months ago, she had been a marine biologist with soft hands and kind eyes. Now her hands were calloused and scarred, and her eyes held a hardness that hadn't been there before. Marcus stood beside her, and Yuki, James, Maria, and Raymond. The people who had become her family through shared suffering. They had argued for 3 hours about what to say to the crowd. In the end, Sarah had insisted on being honest. The crowd quieted as she raised her hand. "I'm not going to lie to you," Sarah began, her voice carrying through the hangar. "We're 4,000 humans on the far side of the galaxy. Earth is so far away that the light from our sun hasn't even reached this place yet. Most of our ships barely work. We don't have enough food, enough medicine, or enough fuel for a journey home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah saw fear on their faces, but she also saw something else: trust. They had followed her this far. They would listen. But we're alive, she continued. We're free. And we have a choice to make. A choice that will determine what happens not just to us, but to everyone we left behind on Earth. She gestured to Yuki, who activated a holographic display. Images from the Valkyrie database appeared in the airstar charts, defense networks, and most importantly, the archive data about Earth's location. The Valkyrie had complete records of Earth's position in the galaxy. They knew where to find our planet, our people, our families. If we had just run, they would have eventually recovered from our attack. They would have rebuilt their ships and their technology, and they would have gone to Earth. The crowd went silent. We destroyed those records, Sarah said. Every reference to Earth in the central database. We collapsed their military installations, their manufacturing centers, their research facilities. The Valkyrie Empire won't recover for generations, maybe centuries. But here's what I need you to understand. That might not be enough. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Some of you want to find a way home. I understand that. I want to see Earth again, too. I want to see the ocean, breathe air that doesn't smell like recycled metal, eat food that didn't come from a Valkyrie nutrient dispenser. But if we go home, we risk leading any remaining Valkyrie forces right to Earth's doorstep. Then what do? Someone called out from the crowd. Just wander the galaxy forever? No, Marcus said, stepping forward. We make sure the Valkyrie can never threaten anyone again. We do this properly. Sarah nodded. Over the past 3 days, our engineers have been studying these ships and the depot systems. We found something interesting. The Valkyrie military stockpiled weapons here, a lot of weapons. Enough to fight a small war. And these older ships, the ones that survived the electromagnetic pulse? They're built tough. Built for battle. James activated another display, showing schematics of the depot's armory. We have orbital strike platforms, plasma cannons, enough explosives to crack a small moon. The Valkyrie built this depot to defend their empire. Now we're proposing we use it to make sure they can't attack anyone else. You want us to destroy what's left? An elderly man asked. His name was Shun Wei, no relation to Sarah. He had been a Buddhist monk before his abduction. More killing? More death? No, Sarah said firmly. I want us to make a choice. Together. All of us. She took a breath. Here's the truth. If we leave the Valkyrie alone, they might recover. They might find Earth. They might do to other humans or other species what they did to us. We can prevent that by finishing what we started. We target their remaining military capability, their shipyards, their ability to project force beyond their own system. We don't attack cities. We don't kill civilians. But we make absolutely certain they can't threaten anyone for a very, very long time. And then what? A young woman asked. After we've destroyed everything? Then we disappear into the galaxy, Sarah said. We find a place to settle, maybe multiple places. We adapt, we survive, we build new lives. And we make sure that if the Valkyrie ever do recover, if they ever venture out into space again and hurt someone the way they hurt us, humanity will be there to stop them. We become guardians, Raymond said quietly, of the galaxy the Valkyrie once controlled. We become whatever we need to be to survive, Sarah corrected. That's what humans do. We adapt. The Valkyrie wanted to study our evolution. Well, they're about to witness it. She looked out at the crowd. But I won't make this choice for you. This is too important. We vote. Everyone gets a say. Do we try to find our way home, risking Earth? Do we leave the Valkyrie alone and just run? Or do we finish this? The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. People argued passionately on all sides. Some wanted to go home no matter the risk. Others wanted to flee to the farthest corner of the galaxy and never look back. But more and more, the consensus shifted towards Sarah's proposal. Finally, they voted. 3,712 people voted to finish what they had started. 243 voted to try to reach Earth. 45 voted to run and hide. It wasn't unanimous, but it was clear. Then it's decided, Sarah said. We stay. We fight. We make sure the Valkyrie can never hurt anyone again. Over the next 72 hours, the humans executed their plan with precision that would have made their Valkyrie captors proud. Strike teams took the 42 functional ships and launched coordinated attacks across Volcara Prime and its colonies. They destroyed the orbital shipyards that had been running on backup power. They collapsed the main military command center. They sabotaged manufacturing facilities that might have helped rebuild the Empire. And they targeted every genetic research facility they could find, ensuring that all data on human biology was destroyed. But they didn't attack civilian targets. When they found Valkyrie evacuation centers, they left them alone. When they encountered medical facilities, they avoided them. The goal wasn't genocide, it was containment. In his tower in the ruined capital, Physician Prime Kelth watched it all happen through surviving cameras and emergency communication channels. He saw the human ships systematically dismantling his civilization's military capability. He saw decades of research burning in flames. And he finally understood what he had done. The Valkyrie had thought they were studying primitive creatures. They had thought themselves superior in every way. But they had made the same mistake countless predators had made on Earth. They had assumed their prey would stay prey. Instead, they had pushed humanity to evolve beyond its normal limits. They had given desperate people nothing to lose and everything to fight for. They had created an enemy that adapted, survived, and refused to be broken. On the 7th day after the Great Escape, a transmission came through on an emergency frequency. Kelth recognized the voice subject 134. Sarah Chun. Physician Prime Kelth, she said, her voice calm and cold. I know you're listening. I want you to understand something. We're leaving Valkyrie space now. We're taking 42 of your ships, your weapons, and our freedom. We've destroyed your military capability, your research data, and your ability to threaten other species for the foreseeable future. Kelth said nothing, but he listened. We've also deleted every record Earth's location. Your empire will never find our homeworld. You'll never get the chance to do to other humans what you did to us. But here's my promise to you. If we ever learn that the Valkyrie have recovered, if we ever hear that you're experimenting on sentient beings again, if you ever venture beyond your own star system with hostile intent, we'll come back. She paused. And next time, we won't be specimens in your laboratory. We'll be the ones running the experiment. Remember that. The transmission ended. Kelth stood alone in his darkened tower, looking out at the ruins of his civilization. The Valkyrie Empire had stood for 1,000 years. In less than a week, it had been brought to its knees by the very species he had dismissed as primitive. The humans had been right to destroy the records of Earth. If Kelth could have sent a fleet there now, he would have not to conquer, but to warn them. To tell them what had been unleashed in their name. 4,000 humans with advanced technology, intimate knowledge of Valkyrie science, enhanced abilities from months of forced evolution, and absolute refusal to be victims. They were scattered in the galaxy now, a diaspora of survivors who had learned to thrive in hell. The galaxy would never be the same. On the bridge of the lead ship, a Valkyrie warship the humans had renamed Remember Us, Sarah Chun stood looking at the stars. Marcus joined her, and they watched in silence as Valcara Prime receded behind them. Do you think we did the right thing? Marcus asked. I think we did the only thing, Sarah said. The Valkyrie wanted to study human evolution. They wanted to see how we adapt to extreme conditions. Well, they got their wish. Where do we go now? Sarah looked at the star charts. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown systems and unexplored worlds. Somewhere out there might be other species that needed protection from predators like the Valkyrie. Somewhere out there might be a new home. Forward, she said. Always forward. That's what humans do. Behind them, Valkyra Prime continued its slow rotation in the darkness. The empire that had once seemed unstoppable was now struggling to keep its remaining lights on. It would take them generations to rebuild, if they ever did. But the humans weren't thinking about the Valkyrie anymore. They were thinking about survival, about freedom, about the future they would build among the stars. The Valkyrie had wanted to experiment on humanity. They had wanted to unlock the secrets of human adaptability. In a way, they had succeeded. They had learned that humans could endure anything, survive anything, overcome anything. They had learned that humanity's greatest adaptation was simple. They refused to quit. And now that lesson was spreading through the galaxy, carried by 4,000 survivors who had been broken, tested, tortured, and ultimately forged into something new. The stars had been blind to humanity before. No longer. Now, somewhere in the darkness between worlds, humanity had awakened. And the universe would never be able to put it back to sleep. Sarah turned away from the window and walked back to the command center. There was work to do, ships to maintain, people to organize, a future to plan. The road ahead would be hard. They would lose people. They would face new dangers. But they would face them together. The Valkyrie had experimented on humans. Now their world had gone dark. And somewhere in the black expanse of space, humanity's light was just beginning to shine.